All right, so I'm going to do a quick Excel lesson on setting up a scatter graph illustrating the XY coordinates on the projectile cannonball that you did earlier. So as you can see, it's just a nicely set up, debatable Excel spreadsheet. All I've done is documented where my velocity is going, where the angles are in degrees, the gravity, which is 9.8 as we know. Delta time is just a figure I've put in there to stop the formatting. So when I click over on here, I've entered 0 in the first point, because obviously I want to go up by 1 second. The second one, I have just referenced A8, which is 0, then plus this 1 second, and it's just to stop the formatting in Excel from being a little bit off. So that just keeps it in place for me. The velocity X and Y, we looked at these earlier. So we used some calculations and worked out which was the sine and cosine to be able to work these calculations. And in there, it's just exactly those calculations that we used. So it has C2 times sine. The radians is just Excel's way of dealing with it. And then times, so C2 times sine. And then, as you can see, C3 is the angle, so 30 degrees. And it's the same calculation we used to work out on the side of that graph as we did before. And obviously the same one for the y in the velocity in the y-axis. So C2 cosine radian C3. Now all the dollar sign there is just for an absolute cell referencing. And all that means is when I copy the formula, so as you can see when I go down here, I could highlight this, and if I wanted more data, I can just drag it, and it keeps the same static number. So it will always keep C2 cell. So instead of copying it down and following that formula down, it will stay there. That is all it does. Here are the calculations again. So if I change this to 30, you will see it's just checking all my calculations. You can see all the numbers change. No, it's not formatted as in it's got decimal places. It's just whole number or point numbers. It doesn't really matter. You don't really see any difference between that and the graph. So what you have to do is add your velocity in, add your angle in, and away you go. The only two columns you will need are the X and Y coordinates for your graph. So all I'm going to do is highlight going down the X and Y. I don't need any headings in there at all. Once we've done that, I'm just going to go to Insert and Recommended Charts. If you don't have a recommended charts, you're using an older version, then you can just find the scatter graph because that's the only one I want. So I'm going to press OK on that, and you can see. Now, the reason why it stops there on mine is because I haven't got enough data. And if I select, I'm going to have to come off the graph first. If I select all those and continue down, you'll see it will eventually get to a point where it will say minus. So minus just means it's going through the coordinate that we need. So we want it on the 0 axis of the y. So as soon as it starts going into minus, it's going to drop through the graph, which is great, but then we're going to see a minus in the graph. So I'll do that and I'll redo that graph just to show you an example. So I'm going to select all of these, insert, recommended chart, scatter graph, press OK, and as you can see, it goes through. Now to amend this, you could just delete those extra cells, but for effort's sake, I'm just going to click on the axes over on the left, and I'm going to format it and change this to 0. And all that will do is when I accept it and press enter, as you can see, that it just takes it to the 0 axis for me, so I don't have to mess with anything else. What you are going to do then is give it a chart title. You're going to give it some axes titles, which you can look up on Google on how to do. And away you go. Hopefully find this useful. And there you have it. Bye.